Welcome, beloved anointed ones. Pay close attention. When the wrong people get nervous, the truth is already moving. That's the kind of shift you're stepping into right now. A shift so unsettling, so unexpected, that someone in law enforcement, someone who once brushed off your existence like dust on their uniform, is suddenly wide awake, double-checking files, rereading conversations, and pretending they're not sweating through their collar. And the funniest part? You haven't even done anything except survive what was meant to break you. That alone is enough to send certain people into a silent panic. Here's a fact most people don't know. Psychology research shows that humans fear what they can't predict more than what they can't control. And that's exactly what happened. You became unpredictable, not reckless, not chaotic, just uncomfortably aligned with truth, purpose, clarity, and self-respect. You stepped into a level of awareness that disrupts the comfortable storyline they built around you. See, they expected a meltdown, a mistake, a slip-up, something they could file away neatly. Instead, you became the calmest storm they've ever observed. That's the kind of thing that makes people in positions of authority sit up straighter. Someone behind the scenes is connecting dots that they didn't even know were related before. Your name, your resilience, your behavior, your silence, your progress, everything is raising questions they never prepared answers for. That's why meetings feel tense. That's why certain officers speak in half sentences. That's why a few people have stopped making eye contact altogether. They don't fear you. They fear the truth finally catching up with the lies they believed or allowed to linger. And let's be real, the universe has a wicked sense of humor. The same people who once thought you were irrelevant, exaggerating, or misreading the situation are now suddenly acting like you're the main character in a classified investigation they can't discuss out loud. They're nervous because the storyline is flipping, and they don't know if they're about to be witnesses, supporters, or footnotes. Something's happening, something big enough for them to stop underestimating you, something real enough for them to take action, not out of heroism, but out of necessity. They're not whispering, "Are they okay?" anymore. Now they're whispering, "What do they know? And how long have they known it?" And that's when you know the tables have turned. The story isn't chasing you anymore, it's circling back to them. Number one, the truth you carry threatens the systems they thought were untouchable. People in law enforcement aren't nervous because you're unpredictable or out of control. They're nervous because everything about your life right now is revealing cracks they never expected anyone to notice. You have something they can't manufacture, adjust, or bury. A truth that stands on its own. Not the kind written on reports or buried in files, but the kind that exposes what really happens behind closed doors. That truth has weight. It has presence. And lately, it's been pressing on the wrong people's conscience harder than they're willing to admit. For years, their comfort came from believing that the systems around them were flawless. They believed authority was enough to dictate reality. Whoever they labeled guilty stayed guilty. Whoever they deemed unimportant remained unseen. But your story, the parts that survived lies, betrayal, false impressions, whispers, and manipulation, became a living contradiction to everything they thought they controlled. You're not supposed to be this grounded. You're not supposed to be this healthy. You're not supposed to be this clear-minded. And your progress disrupts the narratives they quietly agreed on when no one was listening. Someone thought they could define you. Someone thought they could contain you. Someone thought they could twist your story into something easier to handle. But now, every step you take, every upgrade in your life, every moment of clarity you walk in is proving they were wrong. And when systems built on assumptions get confronted with evidence they didn't ask for, someone inside starts to panic. You became the uncomfortable reminder that they were dealing with a person, not a file. A soul, not a statistic. A chosen one, not a convenient story. And that realization is hitting the people who once felt untouchable. Not because they fear exposure in a dramatic way, but because the truth you carry doesn't need force to reveal itself. It reveals itself simply by existing. Your evolution is louder than any accusation they once believed. Your strength is clearer than any label they tried to attach to you. Your calm spirit is stronger than any attempt to undermine you. That's why they're nervous. You didn't break the system, you exposed it. And you did it by surviving what was designed to silence you. Your truth isn't attacking anyone, it's just finally being seen, and some people were never prepared for that. Number 2, they're realizing their power doesn't work on someone who isn't afraid of them. Most people move differently when they stand in front of authority. They shrink a little, adjust their tone, second-guess themselves, and hope they don't say the wrong thing. That's what law enforcement is used to. They rely on that invisible pressure, that unspoken fear, that automatic compliance people carry the moment a badge walks into the room. It's not always intentional. It's a system built on the expectation that people won't challenge it. But you broke that entire expectation without raising your voice or breaking any rule. You simply showed up with a steadiness they didn't expect. Your calm is what unsettles them. Not arrogance, not defiance, not boldness, just calm. You don't panic when they ask questions. You don't lose your voice when they show up. You don't swallow your identity just because someone with authority is standing nearby. And in their world, that's rare. People who can't be intimidated force the system to rely on honesty instead of pressure. That's a disruption they never enjoy. What makes them nervous is that you carry a confidence that didn't come from rebellion, it came from survival. You've already lived through emotional fights, psychological battles, betrayals, gaslighting, spiritual attacks, and family storms that would have left most people numb. You learned the kind of emotional maturity that can't be bought or taught. So when authority tries to use fear as a tool, it doesn't land. Not because you're trying to be tough, but because you've already faced deeper threats than anything a badge could imply. Someone on the inside noticed this. They watched you stand your ground without disrespect. They watched you remain steady when most people would crumble. And that's when they realized the usual tactics won't work. They can't scare you into silence. They can't confuse you into doubt. They can't pressure you into mistakes. Your spirit doesn't bend the way they're used to seeing, and they can't categorize you because of it. Authority thrives when people cooperate out of fear. But you cooperate out of clarity. You respond out of truth. You act from self-respect. That terrifies people who prefer control over honesty. So now, instead of trying to intimidate you, they're shifting their behavior, choosing their words carefully, and adjusting their approach. Because the one thing they didn't expect is exactly what you've become. Someone who doesn't crumble when confronted, someone who doesn't shake when questioned, someone who doesn't lose themselves under pressure. You're not fighting the system, you're just no longer feeding it with fear, and that alone rewrites the entire power dynamic. Number 3, your name keeps reappearing, because someone tried to weaponize it, but the truth won't cooperate. There's a reason your name is circling back into conversations it never should have been in, and it has nothing to do with anything you've done wrong. It has everything to do with the fact that someone tried to twist your story into something easier for them to control. That's where the nervousness comes from, when people in authority keep seeing your name pop up, but the information tied to you refuses to make sense. They start to feel the pressure of something bigger than paperwork. They start sensing the truth fighting its way through the cracks. Someone thought they could drag your name into a narrative that didn't belong to you. Maybe they exaggerated something. Maybe they reported something out of spite or confusion. Maybe they floated your name during a conversation where they needed a distraction. Whatever it was, the intention wasn't honest. And now the truth is exposing the weak spots in their story. Patterns aren't matching. Timelines aren't connecting. Behaviors don't align with the accusations. Every detail meant to paint you as a problem keeps flipping back on the person who initiated it. That's why your name won't go away. It's not because you're guilty. It's because the lie built around you is collapsing and dragging attention with it. Every time someone in law enforcement tries to close the file, something doesn't add up. Every time they try to move forward, another inconsistency shows up. They're being forced to confront the possibility that someone used them to play a game they shouldn't have been involved in, and that's where the panic begins. Your innocence isn't quiet anymore. It's loud. It's obvious. It's making people ask questions they weren't prepared to ask. Someone high enough is starting to realize that the story surrounding you wasn't just exaggerated, it was constructed. And nobody likes being used, especially not people who pride themselves on order, procedure, and evidence. They're now dealing with the embarrassment of realizing that they took someone's word for something that wasn't rooted in truth. Your name reappearing isn't a threat to you. It's a threat to the person who tried to bury you under assumptions. Law enforcement is beginning to understand that you were never the problem. You were the point they ignored. And now the truth won't let them rest. It's pulling your name back to the surface because it refuses to let a false narrative stand any longer. Number 4. They're afraid you'll discover how much they actually know about you. There's a level of tension around your name that has nothing to do with danger and everything to do with exposure. Their exposure, not yours. Someone in law enforcement isn't worried about who you are. They're worried about what you might one day uncover, about what they've been doing behind the scenes. That's the part people never talk about. The silent panic that rises when someone realizes that the person they overlooked, underestimated, or casually monitored has now stepped into a level of clarity that makes hidden things look shaky. The truth is, they know more about you than they were ever supposed to. Not in a dramatic spy movie way, but in the subtle, bureaucratic, let's check on this person way that slowly spiraled into something messy. Someone took an interest in you, perhaps out of concern, curiosity, boredom, or because your name landed in the wrong conversation. And what was meant to be routine became personal. Files got too thick. Notes got too detailed. People shared too much information in places where they shouldn't have. Someone got too comfortable. Now that you're rising, healing, succeeding, and standing taller than any version of you they were expecting to see, they're facing the uncomfortable truth that they went too far. You outgrew the small version of you that they once observed. You're no longer the confused, vulnerable, or isolated person they assumed you were. You've become someone with a strong presence, clean energy, and sharp awareness, and that creates a problem for anyone who treated your situation casually or unfairly. They're not scared you'll retaliate, they're scared you'll discover the unnecessary notes, discover the unprofessional conversations, discover the misplaced suspicion, discover the assumptions that had no basis, discover how your story was handled, not because of truth, but because someone didn't understand your depth or destiny. Their fear has nothing to do with you being a threat. Their fear is rooted in the possibility that the truth will come full circle and reveal who was careless, who was biased, who was misled, and who acted without proper judgment. They worry you'll piece together the timeline and see the parts they hoped would stay buried. The panic is not about your future. It's about their past and how it might look when your strength forces everything into the light. You're not chasing answers, but the people who mishandled your story are praying you never start looking for them. Number 5. You exposed their weakness. Without saying a word, Your existence became evidence. Some people in authority build their confidence on the assumption that they can understand everyone who crosses their path. They believe they can read you in a glance, predict your next move, and categorize you neatly before you even speak. It's how they maintain control, through the belief that people are patterns and they are the experts at interpreting them. But then you appeared, and your life interrupted their script in ways they never expected. Without trying, without performing, without defending yourself, you showed them how wrong their assumptions were. What unsettles them most is that you didn't react the way their systems are trained to expect. They expected frustration, emotional outbursts, inconsistencies, something they could point to and say, "See, I was right." Instead, you responded with a level of self-control they couldn't interpret. You walked through storms with dignity. You made decisions that didn't align with the chaos others projected onto you. Your behavior didn't match their predictions, and in their world, that's embarrassing. When someone in authority misreads you, it shakes the foundation of their confidence. It exposes the fact that their instincts are not as sharp as they want people to believe. Your healing was the real shock. They expected emotional residue, bitterness, or instability, but you evolved so gracefully that it forced them to question everything they assumed about you. Some of them are now looking back at their earlier judgments with discomfort, realizing that you were never the problem. They were just observing from a limited perspective. When you grow beyond the box people place you in, you expose the smallness of the box, not yourself. What threatens them is the fact that your life now serves as silent evidence. Your progress challenges their interpretations. Your maturity contradicts their early conclusions. Your peace is proof that they misread your entire story. And for people who rely on accuracy, that's a wound to the ego they can't easily admit. You became the reminder that intuition can be flawed, training can be biased, and authority doesn't guarantee understanding. Your existence shows that real strength isn't loud or dramatic, it's consistent, calm, and undeniable. You didn't set out to expose anyone, but your evolution did it anyway. They're not nervous because you're powerful. They're nervous because your growth exposed the limits of their power. You didn't reveal their weakness by attacking them. You revealed it by becoming everything they said you wouldn't. Number 6. They're taking action. Because you forced their hand, not because you begged for justice. What's unfolding around you right now isn't driven by a sudden surge of integrity or a change of heart. It's happening because someone in authority finally realized they can't outrun the consequences anymore. Your growth removed their escape routes. Your stability closed the loopholes. Your clarity turned the spotlight around. They're not acting out of goodness. They're acting because you've become too impossible to dismiss. Every part of your evolution backed them into a corner they can't deny. This is what makes the situation so tense. They were comfortable as long as you were struggling, confused, or uncertain about your own voice. As long as you were quiet, they could take their time. As long as you were healing slowly, they could pretend there was nothing urgent. But the moment you stabilized, the moment your life started aligning, the moment your spirit stopped shaking, everything they relied on began to crumble. You forced their hand simply by getting better. Someone behind the scenes is watching your progress unfold faster than they expected. They see your name gaining respect. They see people showing up for you. They see your story getting clearer. They see your energy becoming stronger. And all of that terrifies them, because it means the truth is rising, naturally, effortlessly, without you having to expose anyone. They know if they don't move now, the narrative will slip completely out of their control. That's the part they don't want to admit. They're not protecting you. They're protecting themselves from being exposed as the people who waited too long. You becoming whole again is unraveling the excuses they use to justify inaction. Your healing highlights the moments they hesitated. Your elevation magnifies the times they ignored your situation. When you rise, their silence becomes suspicious. When you become clear-minded, their delay becomes questionable. When you step into self-respect, their lack of urgency becomes loud. So now they're scrambling. They're trying to repair the story before someone else pieces together the truth. They're trying to fix what they allowed to fall apart. They're taking action not because they finally saw your worth, but because your worth is becoming too obvious for them to pretend otherwise. You didn't force anything physically or verbally. Your transformation forced accountability. And they know it. They're not saving you. They're catching up to the truth you've been walking in all along. Number 7. Someone in authority regrets underestimating the one person they should have protected. There's a particular kind of regret that hits harder than guilt. It's the realization that you misjudged the very person you were supposed to stand up for. That's the weight sitting on someone's conscience right now. They underestimated you when you were at your lowest, when your voice didn't carry, when your support system was thin, when your pain was too real to defend yourself properly. Back then, you were easy to overlook because you weren't fighting back. You were surviving. You were trying to understand the storm, not argue with the people watching it. But now that you've stepped into clarity, everything they dismissed is coming back with sharper definition. They're realizing that the person they treated as fragile was actually the strongest one in the entire situation. The person they brushed aside was the one with the highest integrity. The person they ignored was the one who never lied, never manipulated, never hid behind excuses. They're seeing now that you were the only one who wasn't playing a game, and that truth is making them uncomfortable. The shift in you, your awareness, your strength, your emotional intelligence, has become a mirror reflecting their earlier choices. They remember the moments where they could have stepped in, but didn't. The questions they should have asked, but ignored. The signs they should have recognized, but pretended not to see. Now, they're replaying those moments with the understanding they lacked before, and the regret is cutting through their confidence. Authority often assumes that the quiet one is weak, that the misunderstood one is confused, that the isolated one must be doing something wrong. But you were none of those things. You were simply surrounded by the wrong people, battling invisible battles and holding on to your sanity while others tried to break it. Instead of offering support, someone in authority misread the entire situation. And now that they're seeing who you truly are, they're realizing how badly they mishandled you. What hurts them most is not that they were wrong, it's that you never rubbed it in. You never fought for validation. You never begged for recognition. You simply grew. You became aware. You outgrew every trap set for you. And that quiet evolution is louder than any accusation you could have made. They know that you know the truth about how you were treated, and yet you've never weaponized it. That's why the regret is so heavy. They didn't just underestimate a person, they underestimated a chosen one. They failed to protect the one soul who actually deserved their care, and now that truth hangs over them like an unfinished confession they can't take back. Number 8. Your character became a mirror they can't escape from. People in law enforcement encounter every shade of human behavior: panic, denial, manipulation, anger, storytelling, excuses. They're trained to read dysfunction before it even speaks. But what they rarely come across is someone who stands in front of them with nothing to hide, nothing to distort, nothing to run from, and nothing to attack. That's what you brought to the table, an unshakable steadiness. And that steadiness didn't just unsettle them, it exposed them. Your presence became a mirror, and mirrors are uncomfortable for people who aren't used to being examined. When they dealt with you, they didn't find contradictions, hostility, or defensiveness. They found consistency. They found honesty. They found clarity. They found a person who wasn't fighting their own reflection, and that's what made them uneasy. Not because you threatened their authority, but because you highlighted where they fell short of their own standards. Your clean spirit forced them to acknowledge their own ethical blind spots. Your calm behavior made their earlier assumptions look careless. Your integrity revealed where they hesitated, where they didn't ask enough questions, where they accepted someone else's opinion instead of seeking the truth. You didn't accuse them, but your very existence quietly pointed out every moment where they should have been better, sharper, fairer, and more attentive. When someone with authority meets a person who is grounded and truthful, it disrupts their mental shortcuts. They can't place you in the usual categories. They can't predict you using old patterns. They can't rely on stereotypes or second-hand assumptions. Instead, they have to face the possibility that their first interpretation of you was flawed. And that's the kind of realization that keeps people awake at night. Because it's not about what you did, it's about what they failed to do. You didn't have to defend yourself or expose anyone. Your character did that on its own. The way you carry yourself, the way you respond, the way you remain composed under pressure, all of it highlights their ethical missteps without you ever saying a word. When truth is embodied in a person, corruption doesn't need to be called out. It reveals itself through discomfort. That's why they're uneasy around you. Not because you're dangerous, but because you remind them of the standard they claim to uphold. You reflect the honesty they skipped, the empathy they ignored, and the duty they neglected. You became the quiet truth standing in front of people who relied on silence to avoid seeing themselves. And that's something no badge can defend against. Number 9. Someone who once judged you is now responsible for protecting you, and that's eating them alive. There's a quiet storm happening behind the scenes, and it's centered around one uncomfortable truth. The person who once dismissed you, doubted you, or even helped enable your suffering is now required, by duty, pressure, or circumstance, to stand between you and harm. That shift isn't accidental. It's the natural consequence of reality catching up with every false assumption they ever made about you. This person used to speak about you from a place of ignorance. They formed opinions from gossip, bias, or incomplete information. They might have assumed you were fragile, naive, emotional, unstable, or simply too much. They misread your silence. They misread your endurance. They misread your trauma as weakness rather than proof of strength. But life has a strange way of flipping the script at the exact moment nobody expects. Now, the same individual who once misjudged you finds themselves in a position where your safety, your truth, your well-being, or your case is in their hands, and it's turning their conscience inside out. Their role demands integrity, yet their history with you is full of blind spots. That contradiction is mentally suffocating them. They're discovering the weight of responsibility when the person they must now protect is someone they overlooked. And the pressure isn't coming from you, it's coming from their own awareness. They're replaying every moment they ignored your words, every sign they overlooked, every rumor they believed, every assumption they made, every time they didn't do the job they were supposed to do. They're realizing they weren't just wrong about you, they were disastrously wrong. This isn't guilt they can talk about in meetings. It's not something they can process openly. It's the kind that creeps up late at night when everything is quiet, and all that's left is the truth they avoided for too long. You were the one they should have listened to. You were the one they should have defended. You were the one they judged without ever truly understanding. Now fate has them standing guard over the very person they once mishandled. And that's the part that's eating them alive, not because you're difficult to protect, but because you were the one soul they should have gotten right. Number 10. Your story exposes the difference between authority and integrity. You became the dividing line they never expected someone like you to draw, not with force, not with revenge, not with loud accusations. Simply by existing in your truth, you exposed a flaw they've spent years trying to hide, the difference between having authority and actually having integrity. Those two things look identical on paper, but you revealed how far apart they really are in practice. Because authority is granted by a title, integrity is proven by character. Authority can be given to anyone. Integrity is carried by only a few. And the moment you stepped into clarity, you made that separation impossible to ignore. They relied on their roles, their badges, their paperwork, their hierarchy. They thought those things made them untouchable, immune to scrutiny, too official to be questioned. But then you walked in with a spirit they didn't expect. You didn't manipulate, exaggerate, or twist. You didn't fight dirty. You didn't fall apart. You didn't fold. You simply stood there, unshaken, and that alone exposed them. Because systems can fake competence, but they can't fake conscience. Not when a real one is standing in the room. Your story cracked open the illusion that authority equals righteousness, the illusion that protocol equals protection, the illusion that reports equal truth. You uncovered how much of their power was only held together by tradition, fear, and routine, not genuine moral strength. You didn't embarrass them. Their own behavior did that. Your transparency revealed their inconsistency. Your honesty highlighted their shortcuts. Your resilience revealed their fear. Your clean record revealed their messy ethics. Your calm presence made their authority look hollow. You showed them what integrity actually looks like, not by trying to be impressive, but by simply being genuine, and they can't hide from it anymore. Every time you step into the room, they feel the difference between what they represent and what you embody. It isn't intimidation, it's exposure. They're nervous because you didn't come in trying to overthrow their system. You came in living proof of what their system failed to uphold. You remind them of every duty they neglected, every truth they ignored, every moment they leaned on authority instead of acting with integrity. And that realization hits harder than any accusation ever could. Number 11. Their fear isn't about what you'll do. It's about what you'll remember. What unsettles them isn't the idea of you fighting back or seeking vengeance. It's the quiet truth that you remember everything they hoped would fade away with time. You remember the tone people used when they thought you weren't worth respect. You remember the inconsistencies in their stories, the way decisions were made, the looks exchanged, the tension in the atmosphere. And the thing about memory is this: it doesn't need proof to be powerful. It only needs to be accurate. They built their confidence on the assumption that you were forgettable. They assumed trauma would blur the timeline, confusion would distort the details, and exhaustion would erase the moments they mishandled you. They thought you'd move on too fast or crumble too deeply to ever recall how everything truly unfolded. But you didn't. You paid attention. More than they ever realized. Now they're panicking because memory can do what evidence sometimes can't. It can expose patterns. A single event can be explained away. A repeated behavior cannot, and your clarity terrifies them because it makes their past actions harder to defend. Your understanding of the timeline is sharper than the reports they rewrote, sharper than the excuses they practiced, sharper than the stories they hoped would replace the truth. Your memory is the one thing they can't alter. They can hide documents, they can spin narratives, they can adjust statements, but they can't reach inside your mind and remove the details you witnessed with your own spirit. They can't undo the way your intuition picked up on things their reports conveniently omitted. They can't edit the moments where their intentions slipped through their professionalism. What you carry isn't bitterness, it's clarity. And clarity is dangerous to people who relied on confusion to keep control. Your memory protects you now. It keeps you steps ahead, even when you stay silent. It reminds you who's genuine and who's performing. It guides your reactions, your boundaries, and your next moves. And that's the real threat. You aren't unpredictable. You're simply informed. They're not afraid of your actions. They're afraid of your awareness. They're afraid of the accuracy you walk with. They're afraid of the truth you've never spoken aloud, but never forgotten. Number 12. You trigger the guilt they never addressed. Guilt is a quiet enemy. It doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up wearing a label. It hides behind forced professionalism and stiff small talk. It leaks through awkward pauses. It reveals itself in the way certain people avoid eye contact around you now. And that's exactly what's happening. Your presence pulls their guilt out of hiding. There are people who handled you with carelessness because they believed you were just another case, another problem, another story they'd never have to revisit. They dismissed you quickly, judged you prematurely, or treated you like someone who wouldn't matter later. They acted with the confidence of people who thought life would bury you, that circumstances would swallow you, that you'd never rise to a point where their actions would need to be answered for. But you didn't disappear. You didn't crumble. You didn't quietly fade into the background like they predicted. You evolved into someone they can't ignore, someone their conscience can't outrun. And now the guilt they never dealt with is refusing to stay quiet. Every time they see your growth, every time your name comes up, every time they're reminded of how you survived what should have shattered you, something stirs inside them. Your progress exposes their lack of integrity. Your healing exposes their lack of empathy. Your rise exposes their lack of discernment. They're not just uncomfortable, they're convicted. Because deep down, they know they misread you, they misjudged you, they mishandled you, and you became someone that forces them to relive their own failures. The real twist is this. You didn't even come back for revenge. You didn't need confrontation, threats, or demands. Your life became the evidence. Your transformation became the truth serum. Your elevation became a mirror they don't want to look into. And that mirror is merciless. It shows exactly who they were when they thought you were nobody. They're nervous not because you're powerful, but because they can no longer pretend they were right about you. They know what they did. They know what they failed to do. And now they have to carry the weight of how wrong they were about the very person who outgrew the labels they placed on you. Your existence is the accountability they hoped they'd never face. Number 13. Someone behind the scenes advocated for you, and that's what sparked the panic. There's always that one conversation, the one no one expected, the one that shakes the room without raising a voice. And that's exactly what happened with you. Someone spoke up, someone with influence, credibility, and enough insight to challenge the storyline others were quietly relying on. It wasn't dramatic or loud. It was calm, precise, and undeniable. And that single moment of honesty threw everything into disarray. Because for a long time, certain people were comfortable believing the version of you they created, a version that made their choices easier, a version that justified their distance or their mishandling. They thought the narrative around you was sealed, predictable, and safe for them to lean on. But then an unexpected voice came forward, someone who saw your character clearly, someone who wasn't fooled by the assumptions floating around, someone who actually paid attention. That person disrupted the script. When someone with authority says, "No, that's not who they are," it forces everyone else to confront the truth they've been ignoring. Suddenly the half-truths don't hold up. The exaggerated reports look sloppy. The quiet mistreatment becomes visible, and the people who were comfortable staying silent start feeling cornered. Not because you demanded anything, but because someone else finally told the truth in a room where truth is rare. The panic isn't about the compliment you were given. It's about what the compliment exposed. It revealed inconsistencies in past decisions. It highlighted the bias in previous judgments. It showed the contrast between how you were treated and who you actually are. And that shift threatens them, because once someone reputable advocates for you, the entire narrative has to adjust. Their old excuses won't work anymore. Their hidden intentions can't stay hidden. Their previous behavior doesn't look neutral. It looks questionable. Now they're scrambling, not because you're dangerous, but because someone credible made it clear that you were misread. When the truth comes from an unexpected source, it hits harder. It forces accountability into places where accountability was intentionally avoided. Your character didn't change. The truth didn't change. The only thing that changed is that someone finally said it out loud. And the moment that happened, everything they once whispered behind your back stopped being harmless and started being a liability. Number 14. The more you rise, the more their silence stops working. There comes a point where pretending not to notice you becomes impossible. That's the stage you're in now, the stage where your growth is so undeniable that even the people who once wrote you off are being forced to watch. Their silence, which used to feel powerful, now feels useless. It can't contain you. It can't shrink you. It can't block what's happening around you. You've outgrown the narratives they depended on, and that's why they're suddenly taking action. Your rise isn't loud or dramatic. It's consistent. It's steady. It's built on real progress, not performance. And that's the part they can't understand. They were waiting for you to plateau, waiting for you to slip, waiting for you to fall back into the version of yourself they were comfortable with. But you didn't. You kept moving. You kept building. You kept healing. You kept learning. Without permission, without applause, without validation. Now they're watching doors open for you, doors that aren't supposed to open for people they underestimated. Opportunities are aligning. Support is showing up. Your name is being mentioned in spaces where previously it was either ignored or misunderstood. And because they have no logical explanation for your elevation, they're scrambling to adjust their position. Silence only works when the story stands still. Your life isn't standing still anymore. Your progress makes their old narrative look outdated. Your evolution exposes how wrong their assumptions were. Your success forces them to confront the reality that they didn't just overlook you, they misjudged you badly, and now action is their only option. Not out of compassion, not out of renewed understanding, not out of sudden moral clarity, but because your rise is removing their ability to pretend. They can't brush off your accomplishments. They're too obvious. They can't dismiss your character. It's too consistent. They can't hide their mistakes. They're too connected to your growth. Their silence is collapsing, and with that collapse comes urgency. They need to reposition themselves, rewrite their stance, repair what can still be repaired, and distance themselves from the way they once treated you. You didn't pressure them. Your success did. You didn't chase them. Your progress dragged them forward. You didn't demand their attention. Your elevation forced their eyes open. Your rise is the reason their silence no longer works, and their panic is the proof. Every action, every moment, every quiet step you've taken has shifted the balance in ways they never anticipated. From the moment they underestimated you to the present day, your life has been a constant, unspoken testimony of truth, resilience, and clarity. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to force recognition. You simply existed, and that existence became evidence. The people who once judged, dismissed, or mishandled you are now scrambling behind the scenes, adjusting narratives, covering missteps, and facing the uncomfortable reality that they misread someone who was never a threat, but always a force of undeniable truth. Your rise isn't accidental. Your clarity isn't coincidence. Your growth isn't a temporary phase. They are the markers of someone who has endured, survived, and evolved in ways that challenge every assumption made about them. The nervousness, the hidden panic, the sudden action. It's not about control or authority anymore. It's about truth catching up. It's about systems, people, and assumptions finally confronting what they were never prepared to handle. A life lived with integrity, strength, and unwavering awareness. You have become the silent disruptor, the living proof that no manipulation, no oversight, no judgment can diminish the person who knows their worth and walks in it unapologetically. Every attempt to control, every misjudgment, every quiet dismissal has only highlighted your strength, your vision, and the fact that you cannot be contained. The nervous glances, the whispered conversations, the unexpected interventions, they are all echoes of a reality you've always embodied. You are untouchable in your truth, unstoppable in your evolution, and undeniable in your presence. Let this be a reminder that what some may fear is not your power to act, but your power to simply be. Your life, your story, your integrity. These are the things they cannot manipulate, rewrite, or erase, and as they scramble to make sense of it, you continue to rise, shining brighter than ever, reminding the world that truth always finds its place, no matter who tries to bury it. If this resonates with you, make sure to join the movement. Subscribe to the channel for more insights that reveal hidden truths, like this video to support the message, comment below to share your experiences, and share it with others who need to see the strength of standing in their own truth. The more we awaken to clarity, the less the world can hide from reality, and together we make sure the truth always wins. God bless you.